11:15. I'll shut that for 3 minutes. Those that are on our Zoom, can you hear okay? If you can just give a thumbs up in that direction. The other thing I can say too is that we will be recording this session. There's Derek at the back there who's got his camera. He's just collecting some footage in terms of our community events for a little project that Trevor's working on. So if there's any objections to that, please raise your hand now so that you know, you can avoid. If you don't want yourself filmed, then you know it's quite happy not to do that. So if there are any objections, please raise it. And just in time, our Kai Whakakī has arrived here, so I'm going to hand it over to Billy. I just finished explaining. We've counted the numbers, so we've got our quorum. We've got 35 people here. We've got 5 people on Zoom. That's the quorum that we need. So without further ado, we'll kick off the meeting, and I'll hand it over to you, Cuz. Just open that up.
Just a correct here. Thank you. Yeah, we've got 15 minutes to make it.
I'm trying just generally, yeah. Video.
I don't know, I'm just taking the instructions. Hoki mai au ki te tāhu o te rangi. Tiro I humaira ki orangi e tutu maira. E ke iho kai runga ki runga e ona take, ko here tau te whenua e horaina nei. Tai hoki rā ki te waiu Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua e herea nei he pātaka kai mā tatau. A tēnei te mihi ke nā ngā taonga e ko haina mai tō tātou nei atua ki a tatau. No reira tēnei te mihi ki o koutou te taumata pakake e noho kei wangirui a tatau. Tai hoki ki ngā reinga e herea nei rā I a tatau o te rauhina o Iwitea o te Whakakī, tēnei te mihi ki o koutou hoki maira ki tēnei hui atau, nama tō tātou nei tarati te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua. Ko reira tēnā koutou, kei rungu ki tēnā tua puatama, e noho nei rā kei rungu I a tātou, rātau kua mene atu ki te pō, e tēnei tau, pēnā I a papa e nokama, rātau. Ka nui tā tātou nei maharutanga mō rātau kua mene atu, ko reira koutou rā hoki atu. Pare atu nā. Hoki mai rā ki a tātou te kanohio. Ngā uri whakaheke. Kei runga ki o tātou nei pokohiwi. Ngā tumanako, ngā wawata, ngā moimoia, ngā mahuetanga o rātau I hai. No reira tēnei tani ki o koutou e whikauhia. Kai ēnā e toi ana. Tēnā koutou, uri no tēnā tātau. Kai te te pukairunga, tēnei te mihi ki au koutou, a tōna wā, he mihi anō pēr, kai runga I ngā mahi I mahia rā e koutou tō tātou nei rangatira, tēnei te mihi atu. Mīnu e tātou. E te ato tohu tātua kaha tātua kai whakaoro. Tiro ko mai rai a tātou e hui ātau, a kai runga ki tēnei tātou, te horo o te Whakakī. Aro haina mai rai a tātou e tūtahi mai rā, mai a te rauhina, mai a Iwitea, mai a Whakakī, kei runga I tēnā taumata e kia nei o Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua. Ara hina mai rai a tātou kei runga I ngā mahi atuake I tēnei rana. Mana ki hea mai kia haere kei runga e te ara tika. Kia haere pono ai ki ngā taonga, ngā unei e ho mai ki a tātai. Kei runga I te ki, ka ura te rā ki tōna kōmata, ka paritatai ki ona kenga. Ko Ko te puawai, ka puawaitia, he kākara tai āwhio, ko haina ki te au, nā unei e nā e te atua. Anei rā tātā i tuku tēnei whakamoimiti ki a koe ke ringo te ingoa tāu nei tamato tātu nei kaiwhakaora a ihu karaiti. Āmine. Kia ora tātā.
Kia ora, Whanau. Kia ora, cousin. Nā hau e... Yeah, nā hau I tēnei rangi a tāhua. Ai, I te mahi o te trust. So again, thank you everybody for coming along today to our annual general meeting of Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua Trust. Being Whakakī Marae representative, I'm truly honoured to be hosting our night and would like to thank all of our trustees and Haukai Inga. Just a couple of admin points to kick us off for our facilities. If anyone's in need of toilets there, Wahine to the left and Tani right. If there's any type of cause for us to evacuate the building, our meeting place is just out there on the forecourt. So if there's any reason to do that, if we can just migrate our way out there. We thank you for all those that are attending via Zoom. This is our first time at having a go at this. And your nephew that you can see there, young Trevor Waikawa, he's controlling today's session. So you'll all be put on mute. We hope at the end when we're in general business that if you've got any Q&A for us, that we can do that. So there is a chat facility on Zoom. If you've got anything to ask Trevor, just chat away to him there and he will control those things for us. So thank you. You'll notice that we're short of a trustee today, and that's our chair, Naomi Wilson. There seems to be a bot going around Whitehall, some lurgy, and she's got it. She's no, another couple other people that have just caught it in the last 2 days as well. So, ka aroha ki tō mātou whanauna, Namu. We hope that she gets better. She has asked me to, if I could cover the stuff that she was going to cover today, so I'm quite happy to do that. Between Joanna, myself and Petty, we'll get through today's session. So without further ado, I'll kick into our agenda. The first of which on there is just to have a look at our meeting, our minutes from last year's meeting. Aroha mai to those that are on Zoom. We don't have available to you our annual report or our financial report, which those in the room do have a copy of. So we just had a quick kōrero before we started this to see whether we could make those documents available to you online somehow, and we just don't have any time at the moment. So we will get that sorted out for next year. So in terms of the minutes from the 2019 AGM, they are in pages 18 to 26 of the annual report here. So what we have to do each year the minutes is to correct anything that may be incorrect, have a chat about some matters arising and to pass over to the true and accurate record. So in terms of looking at if there are any corrections, I am not going to stand here and read all these minutes. What I will do is I'll give you some time to read through them. Hopefully you're doing that now. And I'll ask if there's anything on the pages concerned. page 18 is the first one that we're going to look at. And we're looking at it, as I said, for if there's any corrections to the minutes. So if anyone has an issue with what was put up there last year.
Mr. Chair, if no one's got any corrections, I've read the minutes and I was present, I'll move it and be accepted.
Okay.
Second.
So we've got a motion to accept the minutes raised by Nigel, and it's been seconded by Peter. I will give people a period of time just to read through them. I have got the motion on the table there. So if anybody does have any corrections, just shout them out, please. Sorry, no, I haven't read that. Apologies. So we'll go through the apologies. We do have the apologies that we received prior to the meeting from Virginia Church. So are there any apologies from the floor?
Josephine Harbour and Doris Nicholson.
Rahira Biddle.
Karen.
Rania Morrison.
GC Smith Christie. And Whakakī Marae Olivia Fifier. BDN Christie and Alexandra Christie. Steve Wolf and Tamaki.
You want it? Yes, Violet? Oh, sorry.
Leslie Chase and Barbara Hunter.
Leslie Chase and
Lahu. Ere Lahu.
Ben.
And Richmond Morgan.
Anyone else? Thank you very much for that.
I'll move that apologies be received and accepted.
And I'll second.
It is moved that our apologies be received and accepted. It's been seconded by Liz. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Abstain? One. And so we'll just move back to the minutes. If there is anyone picked up any questions to minutes? On that basis, I'll put Nigel's motion to the floor that 2019 Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua Trust minutes will be accepted as true and accurate. That's been seconded by Peter. Last chance. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? Abstain? Thank you. Thank you. Matters arising. Work. There was one in here, I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, it's on page 19, and it was a point raised by Liz. And it was to do with the what's recorded in the statement of changes there, or the financial statement prepared by Karen Cotter. There was a point in there for future reporting purposes, the trustees will ensure our account places the footnotes clarify what the trustees' income period entails. So there is you'll notice that when we get to in the report, there is a footnote in there that does explain what that is. And so that was the matter arising that I picked up. There's nothing else that people can spot. I'll move on to our agenda. Okay. And so I will read this report out because I didn't write it. I have read through it. So this is Naomi's report. It is the chairperson's report. And just pretend she can. So, yeah, I want kia mihi o tātou mate. Kua whiturangi tia ki te koro wai aroha o Ranganui. Te hunga nā rātou I para te huarahi hei hikuinga nā waiho. Haere hoki atu rā koutou, ki tō tātou kāinga tuturu, whakamaro atu. O tui rā tātou te hongo ora tēnā tātou. So there was just mihi atu o rātou, to pass away. And also to join us today. This COVID-19 pandemic driving us out of uncertainty. Behind the practice of tikanga through manaakitanga and kaitiakitanga, catapulted Māori customs to the forefront of farm and communities. So, flying from our inaugural landing was overwhelmed and determined to get on the Japan. 2020 start with determining a more hands-on approach with our activities with the focus to whānau to gather knowledge and feedback. Due to the pandemic restrictions, this created the inability of kanohi ki te kanohi hui with our whānau. But as trustees, we continue to meet weekly via Zoom to continue our work with TWNART Trust. And our September kahui members, who we heard our members karanga to create a positive pathway to improve future communications. And during the year, we have continued to mature, grow and strengthen our relationship building across the many different entities in the wider district. This has been implemented under the of Manaakitanga Aroha Trust. In terms of the deferred selection property or DSP, or Mangawhiti Road Mangawhiti property. So since last year, from August 2019 to present, we have worked closely with Tata Rotuai and Kahui couple here, who are two other Kahui plus themselves. These who have been via Zoom or in recent months, it's a very complex DSP process, and collectively we continue to work together. As more information comes to hand in the coming months, we will update our members in relation to pivotal future decisions. Please acknowledge and thank Eddie Munro for his continued support as our Tato representative with the Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua. On behalf of Bob, Joanna and I, we would like to thank you all for your patience and ongoing support. This year has been a challenging one for all of our whānau of the Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua Trust. And whānau will always be at the forefront of our mind, heart and decision making. So we take this opportunity to wish you every successful and it's my pleasure to present. E hara taku toi te tō taku tahi e ngā e tō taku. Strength is not of an individual, but gathered. So there is a motion that goes, a resolution that goes with that, and that is that the chairperson's report on the operations of the Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua Trust by the trustees read the income year of the initial received. So I'll put that resolution to the floor. Is there a seconder for that? To Wairau. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Abstain? 4 none. Thank you. So we'll move on. If our, just so, by the way, our agenda is on page 2 here. Now before I kick into anything else beyond that, reflect on our values and what we're about. So, thank you, Joanne.
I'm sure that everyone could come here. I just wanted to touch on our values, just to remind us all as we move through our week today. The whanaungatanga, one of our key values, tikanga, wairoatanga, manaakitanga, and kaitiakitanga. These are our values that we bring to all of our hui. We bring that to all of the mahi and what we do and how we act and how we interact with our whānau and so they're our values. They'll be statement. Key words are taken from our values on physical well-being to social development while acknowledging the integrity of our environment and economy to build a prosperous future. That's our mission statement for Te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua Trust, and our vision is huihuia ngākia kia koa, together, empowered and prosperous. So as the trustees move forward in our work, we've been doing this for 2 years now, we are guided by our values, our mission statement and our vision to do this work. So,
Thank you, Joanna. So next up is on our agenda is the audited financial statement. So I'll just include it as an insert in the annual report is the audited annual report for our financial statement. So the reason why that was an insert to our annual report is because this went down the wire. We got the final sign off on this report at 5 p.m. on Friday. So there was a bit of toing and froing. This is the first year we've had our accounts audited. So we've had fun and games over the last couple of weeks of the auditor working with Karen Potter, who are our accountants, and also Tato accountants, and another auditor up in Gisborne, BDO, to make sure that what was presented in this report is correct. And the other thing that impacted that also was that this is the first time that we've calculated what the Kahui beneficial unit, well, that's our holdings within Tato, quantified a figure around that. So that definitely took a bit of toing and froing. The first Kahui author Frank to figure out what that holding is, because all Kahui have a 1/7 holding in Tato, that figure is going to be the same for everybody. So those were just the 2 key points that I wanted to highlight into some specifics. So if we have a look at page 6 of the report, which comes up to the statement of profit or loss. So if we have a look on our income side, you'll see that in 2020 there, first up on the page there is our distribution income. So that was our second drop from out of the 3 drops that Tato guaranteed us. We was accepted. So that figure is 352,333. So as it says in there, that's a tax exempt distribution coming from Tanto to ourselves. As you can see, we received the same amount in 2019, and with a bit of luck, we'll be receiving the same thing in 2021. Submit all of our paperwork. So that's the main bulk of our income is coming in through that distribution. You'll see that we made a small amount of income there through interest on bank accounts. So we did put some of our funds on term deposit for the last financial year and this financial year as well. So that's some of the income from that. And then you'll see under other income there, which is the recognition of Te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua Trust, Kahui beneficial units, KBUs, Kahui beneficial units. So what the accountant in order to did was reviewed the books of Tātou to see whether their figures, financial figures mentioned in their report were fair and reasonable. On the basis that Tarrant Cotter, our auditors who are Coates Associates and the auditors of Tātou, that will be there up in Gisborne, they all come to an agreement that what was on Tātou's 2020 financial return was a fair and reasonable projection of what their capital was. Based on that, they've actually added that income, it's really our asset, onto our books. So that's been passed, that value has been passed onto our books. And the value of that, just as the Kahui beneficial units, is $17,700,465, which is a huge amount. That's something that we can't get our hands on very easily at all. We have to break out of Tātou, and there's all sorts of rules around that before we can even think about getting that money. We have no intentions of doing that at this point in time, but that is truly where the money is being held, and is at that Kahui level. It's being held. Tātou is holding those funds on our behalf. So each year when Tātou finalises their accounts, and hopefully they'll keep on making money, then we'll be able to get an updated figure on what that value is back to our Kahui. So we'll just pause and ask if there's any questions on the income side before we go down into the expenses. No? So on the expenses side, we have got a few recurring expenses. The advertising relates to the public meetings that we hold. So that would include last year's AGM and our September meeting from last year as well. On the consulting and accounting side of things, there's two bits in there. One is our accounting fees, which comes out to was just over $2,000 last year, and then also there was a sum we paid out for the work that needed to be done to get some salary advice or some remuneration advice for our trustees. So there's a company out there called Strategic Pay whose job it is to provide their clients with information on, as an organisation, what may people who work for your organisation be remunerated. And you'll see that in, we'll get to that resolution soon about remuneration. But that was an expense to get that work. Election expenses are really going back to, that was in 2019, sorry. Printing and stationery, those generally tend to be for our AGM report from last year. Salaries has a huge number on it. So last year's resolutions that were made, there was a back payment. So based on the advice that comes through from Strategic Pay, that was a pool of 72,000 per annum, which will be divided equally amongst the 3 trustees, which comes out to 72,000. And that was one resolution that was raised last year to pay out that. There was also another resolution which was about applying that backdated back to the time that we started serving, because we couldn't pay ourselves anything until the resolution had been paid. So that's where the additional 12,000 is there, which makes up that salary total. Trustee expenses there. The lady sitting next to me on our left, she does have a few expenses in getting down here from Auckland. And we're representing her hatu. She does submit her expenses, travelling expenses. It's a bit of a drive down from Pimacalvo. So we've approved her expenses for, and also for studying. Venue hire and the catering, so that tends to be for those covering our September hui and AGM for last year. So there is a large figure we give out for catering. That's specifically for our AGM hui, which is supposed to be a hākari, and that's what we'll be participating in later on. So with venue hire and catering, we are generous to our marae. We've got money and we should be handing it back to our marae. So that's fine. With filming, up until today, we had Zach Wild, I don't know if you know him or not, who used to come in and film our sessions so that we could put it out there for those who couldn't attend these meetings to view. This year, through a marae connectivity program, most of our marae have this fancy audio-visual stuff now. And we've had the chance to experiment with this in Whakakī. The last time we used it, one of our whanauna was delivering a eulogy for his father with his tangihanga that was held here. So we thought, we've got this technology, we'll utilise that rather than having the expense of getting Zach in to do it. So this is our first time the Zoom session has been recorded. We will make that available to all of our fund. Yeah, we spent, we had both those sessions for that. Branding, we have done work on that branding. You can see our little logo. That's up there. We've got 2 logos there. You can see it on the front page of our annual report. So those logos were done by one of our whanauna, Charles Woodhead, who's in town. We just gave him a brief of how he could find a logo that would represent our 3 kāhui. So there is a bit of a cordial deal behind that. I'm not going to go into it, but that's where our branding expenses go. So looking at that, we come up with the total expenses of 106,000 for last year, which is large number. If you look at then at what the profit losses before tax, we're definitely in the black to the tune of almost $18 million. Are there any questions on what our financial position is at the moment. Let's go on to page 7 of that report, which gives down lists out our what comprises our which you can see current assets, which is our bank account. The 30th of June was 583,707. Our assets in the Tato non-current assets. So they'll just and that's to the tune of $17,083,868. And then we have some liabilities to offset against that. So there's a bit against the unearned interest or interest received in advance of just over $1,000. And then you'll see in terms of our equity, we're sitting in retained earnings there, to the tune of $18,281,000. $18 million, 281,601. Any questions on that? What you can see is that we're a very asset-rich organisation, although a certain portion of those assets are liquid. If you want to go through our forms, just looking at what our the changes in equity, and it's been substantial this year because we've added in Kāhui beneficial units. You'll also see on the next page that we can add our cash flow is strong. It's very good. So those were the key things that I went to go through. There are any specific questions that people wanted to ask, I'm happy to ask them at this point. Just to note also that on pages 13 and 14 of this report here is the independent auditors that were performed by both and which just sets out that things are in order. We haven't received the letter back from them yet. My discussions with the auditors, there was one thing that they picked up on, which we're currently talking to accountants about, and that was around applying the holding tax session. Fairly shortly. Next week, I'll be following up with make those winnings for next year. But that was only feedback. So, any other questions on the financials? Rita.
The consultants you got to look at what trust received, was that based on the fact that we have $1 somewhere, that we have, well, now 5,000?
No, I don't. I don't think the value was something that we supplied to the company.
Right.
What they asked us was, "What's your money? How much were their reviews, and what you expect?" So. The top of that, and on page 7 of the report there, that came back from strategic pay. Yeah, but it was in terms of meetings and stuff. Right.
The salary to pay. It doesn't align for your resolutions. That's different. That's lease.
What's sorry, ma'am?
You passed the two resolutions that you AGM last year for the trustees remunerations.
Yes.
That total doesn't need to be paid. That's lease what you actually pay. So just the change the resolutions. The resolutions.
Good point. Yeah, I know. Definitely one was around 72.
Yeah,
and
but the
one
other one was 18. It's 19.
When-
I'm just saying it should have been noted that it's.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I will follow up. I don't think, I'm pretty sure I did the numbers. I think our resolution was incorrect for last year, but it's a great point. We'll follow up on that. Yeah. So I think it was 12, so I will go back and double check. So thank you for pointing that out.
Can you just quickly explain what a beneficial unit is? I know I was at the last meeting, but I just noticed it again, but I didn't quite fully understand.
So it's a Kāhui beneficial unit. The KBU is Kāhui unit. And what it is working out.
So I explain it.
I'll let our Taho representative explain KBU. Thank you.
So just a quick reflection back on the initial period of Tato. Part of our settlement was 100 million in cash. And so during that initial period, the compromise position reached by all 7 Kāhui was that they would each have an equal share of that, but to the extent that they could reflect that on their own balance sheets. And so the 100 million represents 1/7 share each, that each Kāhui is able to reflect as their shareholding in Tato. And just picking up the question from Rita, this trust here could not, and nor could Strategic Pay, actually look at that 100 million or the 1/7 share of it, because there's no control at this level of that 1/7 share.
Thank you.
Is it okay?
Yeah, very good.
So if there are no more questions on the financials. Propose the following, that the Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua Trust Annual Report 2020 consolidated financial statements for the period ending 30th of June 2020 be adopted. Is there a second for that? Those in favour? Against? Abstain? Thank you. Also, on from that, we also have a resolution around our auditor. So this year it's our first year that the accounts were audited. We selected Coates Associates from our system last year to be our auditor. I have to say they did a fantastic job in a couple of weeks of being able to audit the statement, especially around this KBU. That said, in discussions with Tato and Kāhui, we think there's some benefit to us moving to BDO, who's another accountancy firm, Gisborne, to audit our accounts next year. The reason for that is because they are Tato's auditors, and they're also the auditors for 6 of the other Kāhui. So we're the only Kāhui that we're using another party. When we've discussed this at trustees, it's made sense for us to align with the other Kāhui and go with BDO. The reason for that is that, you know, they've got intimate knowledge around, especially around this KBU space and the rest of it. We're hoping, even though we had a fabulous turnaround on our auditing this year, we also think that it may assist us in the timeliness of our auditing. So that's the proposal that we'd like to put to the floor, is that BDO Gisborne be our new auditor for the 2020-2021 income year. Is that be approved? So do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second that. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? So we have a look on page 7 of the report. So that's to do with trustee remuneration, and the words that are on that page, the content that's on that page, this is what we got back from Strategic Path in regards to what they form along. So as you can see, when we discussed it with you last year, when we discussed this with strategic pay, we realised that there was a period that we're going through in our establishment that's going to take a bit more work than once we're being established and just rolling along with certain things. So as trustees, we have discussed this. So do we still have a fair amount of work to do on the establishment side of things? And the answer is yes. So we're recommending that we retain the current fees for the 2021-2022 financial year. And it will review that definitely again next year to see whether we can drop back, because we're in our governance role rather than being an establishment as well as governance. So I just wanted us to talk around that before I put the motion to the floor. People's views on it maybe. And so the floor is open for any input.
That's right. So is the 72 what you were paid was the remuneration amount for last financial year?
Yes,
And so
plus there was an additional remuneration that was paid last year for the year before.
And there was no indication from strategic pay about like an alignment with inflation or something? Was there anything that was okay?
No, there wasn't. There was mainly the fact that, you know, we get through the period of the establishment and then we'd drop back, just having established, we'll be able to drop back to a purely governance function. But we've still got a bit of work to do in that establishment, which is why you know, we're putting to you to carry forward with issues. Yes.
Just to support that is to know that there's a CPI that's attached to the salary. So just to reiterate once again what Te Whakakī pointed out is that it's surprisingly not taken into account for you, and it's remaining the same year by year by year.
Yeah.
But just know that the beneficiaries here are acknowledging that there should be an increase along the way.
Yes, thank you. We're fine.
Just 2 points on that. Yes, establishment, but the assumption of going to governance, there is an assumption in there that you actually have feet on the ground and people who are doing the money. So that's the other side of it. So establishment, yes, but establishment could continue on subject to actually having people and paying people who are operating at another level.
Yes, so when we're in operation mode, the expense base is going to go up. We'll be paying people to actually do the money, and whereas our role is the government.
And perhaps just the other point is that the normal course is there's a number of different providers out there, like Strategic Pay, IOD. There's quite a few of them who are always monitoring market movement. And so what they do is you have to pay them, but you can get them to actually relook at it, which gives you that independence and gives you relativity in terms of what's happening right across the country. So you can do that whenever you choose to do it.
Oh, just so the amounts in here, strategic, are they reckoning that they gross amounts or net?
Yes, they are.
So you'll get tax. coming
So any withholding tax or PAYE will be coming out. If there's no further questions, I will put that resolution to the floor that the trustee remuneration pool of 72,000 for the 2021-2022 income year be approved. Seconded by JJ.
Just thinking, I get to watch you fellas work every week.
So all those in favour?
Aye.
Against, abstain from none. Thank you. So, we're just gonna bring in to, the last one there is just on our AGM for next year. What do we have to do? We have to set our AGM date every year. Next year we're proposing that it move in early December. On the 5th of December, this is that and out this year it's been a real push in trying to get especially the financial through it. Now, I think it's probably also better if Tato actually issues their financials before Kahui does, so we can buy these things in. Hence the date of late 15th.
December.
So I'd like to put that through to the floor that our 2021 AGM date be set for Sunday, 5th of December 2021. All those in favour? Sorry, do I have a second for that? Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, abstain.
Venue, Bob?
And
The venue?
oh, we haven't determined that yet, cuz. But I would say was Te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua last year, was Whakakī this year. So but we'll have that discussion. But I can sit down at this stage because cousin Petty is just going to get up there and tell us a bit about his money that he's been doing. With a plug first.
Yes. First of all, he honore mōku kia noho kairunga I tēnei tūnanga nā koutou I whiriwhiria. I just want to say that it's an honour and a privilege to sit in the position that you anointed me in, and that is to be the Tato representative at the table on behalf of Te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua. First and foremost is to say thank you for your support, ongoing support as it has been. The second one was to say that next week, just as we were right up until 1 minute to 11 fraught about the quorum for this week, we should not be in that position next Saturday at the memorial. So, koe rā tāku, he mihi kia tātou o Te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua. He hui tā mātai. On next Saturday, please put this into your diary and rock on up at 1 p.m. to the Memorial Hall. It's no longer at Rangiahua. He hui ane, he mate ara Rangiahua. So we can't have it there, so it's now at the Memorial Hall. We need 80 for the quorum for Tato Tata. Please.
Sorry, Nikki's taking 3 busloads to Hastings that day for our AGM. We've got Free buses and free tickets to Splash Mountain. That put their priorities in the right place.
What is this?
But we had a quarter with Lewis who didn't realise, and so early next year we'll be setting the district diary.
Yeah, that's true.
So if it's a terrible day, next Saturday,
We need to coordination and
yeah, don't go to Splash Planet and get wet. Come from Aerial. Some of you might have noticed at the table just outside, I managed to get my hands on a box of the annual report for Tato Tato. Everyone else will get them next Saturday. You have them now. Rather than me sort of perhaps go through the slides, we'll go through them really fast. But what I can do is just give you a bit of a clip version because you'll have it in the annual report as to what Tato Tato has achieved. So just as a bit of context, I'm one of 7 that sits at our board table. Our chair is Leon Symes, who is the representative from Rongo Mai Wahine. I'm the deputy chair. I'm also chair of the Finance Audit and Risk Committee. I get to sort of dabble in quite a few areas on behalf of you and on behalf of the wider Tato Tato. A wee bit similar to what we have here for Te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua, also in the strategic plan, which flows down into the annual program of work for Tato Tato, we have PO. Mana Māori is one, and that looks at sort of like resilience and well-being. The Tangata PO, the Taiao in terms of the environment, and Te Pātaka, which is around our administrative, around our structures, around our subsidiaries. So I just wanted to flick through some of the Mana Māori that have happened in the course of this year. One of them is in terms of Kāhui Ako. We went into an agreement with the Ministry of Education. They funded 40,000, and that is primarily looking at integrating into our educational programs pūrākau and kōrero from home, from here, as opposed to somewhere else in the world, so that our children might be exposed to our stories and our kōrero, our history. The Māori cultural responsiveness rubric in schools, that's what that's all about as part of the Kāhui Ako approach. The other part that we're looking at is a professional learning and development plan for the centre and for school leadership. So that's all about Kāhui Ako, and that's what we've been focused on. We did put an application into the Mātāwai and they declined us. Because they said that someone else in Waigo had already been funded, so our fault for being so slow. But there are other things that you'll see inside the annual report in terms of what we're doing in this PO area, Mana Māori. Next one. Next one is around tangata, resilience and well-being to people. COVID-19, can I just put a bit of a shout out here? COVID-19 struck us all, right across the country, but through the networks of Tai Whenua, this is an acknowledgement of Tai Whenua, they were one of the quickest across the whole country to gear up and start response and to get into welfare delivery. So tēnei te mihi kia koe rā, Nigel, as our chair. And in that shout out, can I include our nephew Trevor? Who was just out there organising, coordinating, delivering welfare packs, and acknowledge all of us, respectively, in each of our lives, not only in the way that we responded in that coordinated response, but also when it came to firewood.
Yeah.
And we were able, through our forestry connections, to be able to get firewood, and we had a number of working bees out here. I think as did Imuitea and I think, and Te Rauhina, and that was wonderful to actually get firewood to our pakeke, to our old people, and those others who needed that sort of resource. probably down the bottom here, what we're looking at, you might have seen this. We now have better communications coming out of Tato. You would have been able to read our general manager's reports from Lewis Lautapu. And so a couple of the big areas that we're looking at is the recovery plan, which includes Pākiri order around our businesses, but also the Wairoa Horticultural Hub. So I'll let you read what's in the report so you can get a bit of an idea as to where we're focused over the next year. Yep. The strategic PO in terms of our environment, there's a lot of mahi that's going on in terms of configuring our partnership with Te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua. It's the only one that's left over, and that's progressing at the moment. It's a bit of a difficult.
Karamaro.
Yeah, the Karamaro. Our reserves board, the actual name of the reserve is Te Rohe o Te Wairoa Reserves Board - Matangirau. The reason for that is that as other reserves might become part of our discussion and co-governance from district council, they can be included as part of this board. When this board was set up, it came through as part of our settlement. The initial trustees that went on it was myself, Phil Beattie and Oha Manuel. We're just going through a process. It was approved yesterday. Us three have until the end of this week to consider the attributes that will lead to putting expressions of interest out so that we can be replaced on that board. It's a co-governance board that works with the marginal strips alongside of Wairoa, the Awa, and they basically start from just past the ferry on both sides and they run all the way down to Te Ngutu. And includes Rangihua, Pilot Hill as it's known, and also Whakamahi. So that's all part of that we have a co-governance with Wairoa District Council. They've got 3 representatives. We've got 3 representatives. We've got a terms of reference and a code of conduct in there for that. And they chaired in the initial period. That's Denise Eagleson Karekare. Yes, please. And the last one is Te Pātaka, and one of the, you'll see it on the expenditure sheet in there, the huge expenditure in terms of governance training. There was a decision at the table that one of Tato's role is to help all kāhui to build capacity capability, particularly in terms of governorship, trusteeship in their respective kāhui. That will continue on through the new year. We believe it's worthy investment in terms of helping kāhui to be able to operate in that whole mana motuhake kaupapa. We've gone whare hoka, some of you might know them, some of you might have even been to some of their sessions. We also had some with the Institute of Directors, IOD. During the last year, we've appointed our commercial board 5 directors on there. Most of them will be there next week at the AGM. If you want to meet them, talk with them. But they've been operating very well despite the COVID. One of the reasons for that is that we had a conservative approach in terms of the SIPO and our letter of expectation. And we were very much, as we are as a kāhui, cash rich. We didn't have a lot, and we've got a very tight SIPO. We didn't have a lot that was out there that fell in terms of the risks that around what happened in COVID. We've got our forestry company directors, and in amongst us, the Mihi Kia Koirari Hari. He not only is he on our Patunamu Forest as a director, but he's also the chair. And we also have our other cousin for known as Shane Walker, who's a director on Wharerata, the other forest. This year, or in the past year, we've appointed Lewis Lautapu as the general manager. Some of you might have met him. If not, go and meet Lewis. He's at 34 Marine Page West. We've got a modest little office. It's a quarter of the Wairoa Waikare Moana Māori Trust Board. And we've decked that out in a way that we can receive our manuhiri appropriately. Yeah. We've also appointed Melissa Kaimona, who happens also to be a councillor, as our administration manager, and we employ Charlene Wado as providing our secretariat. We have a good working relationship with Wairoa Waikato Moana Māori Trust. And the DSPs, the one in particular that I've been facilitating, I wouldn't mind handing the facilitation role over to someone else. But the position that we're in at the moment is that we have a mana whenua process. Tēnei te mihi ki o koutou I witea. Nā koutou I tono o mai. And that's very active. We've recently received submissions from the other 3 kāhui who are part of kāhui couple here who have expressed interest in Magapoiki. And we're working through that at the moment. Many of you will be aware that the settlement that we signed off with the Crown requires that Tā Manuhiri be part of this discussion around this whenua moving forward, and that requires that one, that they agree with the nominated entity which would sit over this and administrate it in due course. And the second one is that they would agree on the transfer value price. So that's a process that we're working through. We hope to get this all done by 30 June next year. Magapoiki, for those of you who don't know the property, it's landlocked in a sense. It's 1,094 hectares, and we don't know just yet what the actual value of that is. We're working closely with Linz as the Crown, representing the Crown, and they've just confirmed that there's 42 hectares of trees that are planted on that whenua that was an overplant. The Crown is not interested in the trees, just in the land, which means they'll come across as a free good, but we will have to pay for the valuation for that. And unless there's any questions, I think that's the last slide, isn't it?
Any questions for Piri?
Hey, jumping on those 3 buses. Please come to the AGM.
So, Peter, are you still having the opening of the tari on Saturday?
Yes. So, yeah, that'll be at 11 a.m. And Lewis and Charlene and Melissa will be down there, just in case you want to go through and have a look and see what's in there. And we'll leave for Lewis to welcome you in. So that tari in that building belongs to you. Tato is just a representative of all of us, but that is part of your asset. And so you have a right to go in there during opening hours.
So I'd like to stand and acknowledge the work that Piri does. It's he, not only for Tato, who's been elected to represent, but especially for our Hahui. So, through no fault of his own, probably because of his competency, he's leading this very difficult DSP we have for Magapoiki. Difficulty being that, we're in negotiations with the third party out there. So it's not an easy role, but he certainly carries it well. And hats off to you. That's very big for Tato. So just before we kick into general business, there's one announcement we need to make, and that's from yesterday for those who Whakakī Marae. We had a Whakakī Marae election. That was because the Whakakī Marae representative, who's myself, according to our charter, was to stand down at our second AGM, which is today. So as part of this AGM, there was an election to take place so that Whakakī Marae would have a representative going forward. So we had held that election at Whakakī Marae yesterday. I was the only as such, according to the rules, I've become the representative. So I'm standing here to say I'm very proud to represent Marae once again. It's for a 6-year term this time, so it's a lot longer commitment, but you know, we have work to do and just keep, as my colleagues here, press on that work. So I think my Whakakī whānau who came yesterday made that decision, and that was the result. So
Well done.
That's great.
So we did just want to talk briefly around our strategic plan, look at our PO and speak to the activities that we've been doing. At one stage, we did have a very busy slide in there that spoke to those activities. Last minute, we all thought it would be too confusing, so we couldn't, and we're just going to speak to it. So on that note, I'm also standing, keep on standing and look at the stuff that I'm working on, which is around this tangata photo that we, and particularly in regard to the first real. So with Marae restoration, it was around reaching out to our Marae over the past year, find out what their needs may be in terms of certainly I'm close to activities as far as Whakakī is concerned. I am the chair of our Whakakī Marae Trust. And the last couple of years we have been working on our plan. We reach out to both our other marae to see where they may be at. Iwi is well positioned in terms of where they stand in getting into marae development. They have aspirations around their buildings and stuff. They're well on the way in terms of the cultural stuff that as marae we all need to think of, like having one and stuff like that. But they have indicated that they would like their assistance in terms of driving forward their physical facilities. With Te Marae, I'm still waiting for an opportunity to sit down with the whānau out there. They did a bit of a board change over this year, the trustees. So I'm not yet ready to sit down and have whatever. In terms of advancing it, this is something that we are looking at this year, bringing a contractor on board to firstly to progress the plans for Whakakī, which now involves working with the agencies who can support these marae development programs. So we have to be TWNART and Department of Internal Affairs. There's coordination required with them to build up a plan for our marae. So crucial to marae development is actually planning out there, and that takes a while to work through. It needs to be endorsed by the whānau. We're almost at that stage with Whakakī Marae, who we'd like to use to drive forward in the first instance, and with that experience to pick up on the plans of the two marae so that we can start work. So that's our approach to it. We're talking to our trustees next week around how we get that kick started in terms of getting contract resource on next year to drive that money forward. In terms of our hapu mātauranga, so this is all about having a tātaka mātauranga, which is way up there in terms of Tātou's aspirations as well. And our needs within the rohe. So I've been, working, I've had discussions with Lewis on this because he's driving from Tātou perspective. With a few of their, I guess, where they're looking for technology enablement, which is definitely in the space. I've been able to store and to display information. Tātou is just going through a process at the moment of creating an IT advisory board. So I'll put my hand up to be one of those members there. But the idea of that is to work through, from a technology perspective, initiatives like that. because the actual storage and display of all that information is reliant on technology. It needs some robust solutions. So one is the technology platform side, the other is the process side, where we have to look at it from the people who are going to go out there and collect this information. We know that there's a lot of information on a huge number of sources that are so available. And Māori TV has been producing for years and years, or collecting all this kōrero by various things like talking to our Pākehē, and all that information is out there. And we should be collecting it, we should be organising it so that we can share it. So, in essence, the hapu mātauranga, that's on a bit of a hold at the moment until the advisory board is kicked off, and we can start doing some planning of how we enable that. On the Papakainga side, so this is a bit of a wider initiative as well as the Tātou initiative. It's going on in relation to community housing, which this buys into. There was a meeting in October, a kick-off meeting around this. And I know that Lewis is looking to drive this forward from the Tātou perspective as well. So until that happens, Order is something in the space that Namu's working in. We did say last year that when looking at it, we'd be looking for others to drive it forward with our input. So I don't particularly want to speak to what Namu has, what she has in that area at the moment, but there are definitely on the people, doing a slight bit of work on the people potential side, that comes with the information we have available. So once again, fitting into an IT strategy for Tātou are the ones who own our register. And we're very much reliant on them if we want to improve how we can engage with our members, that it's their register that's going to be impacted. So this is another kaupapa that's going across to the IT advisory for this. And there have been various information shared with Tātou. That's my little bit. Kazi wants to say something.
Just in the Hauora space. So yesterday afternoon, after the board meeting, Kāhui chairs came in to get a bit of an advanced look at the AGM and also the report. One of the issues they raised in the Hauora space and as a question to the board was, what can Tātou's position regarding growing problem we have with E. So part of where we resolved our Tātou was that it has a leadership role to work alongside those other agencies, which at the moment are working under the CPG. It's the Community Partnerships Group, which through Penny Henare has a small amount of money and is one of 4 pilot trials across the country in terms of local commissioning. What does that mean? It means, and it's off the back of Wairoa saying, don't tell us what we think we need, we'll sort out what we need, but what we need is the money to be able to do it. And so that's the local commissioning model, and that came up yesterday in the Kāhui Chairs meeting with Tātou.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm just going to talk a little bit to the pose as well. Just to put a bit of context around it. So the way the tasks within each PO are distributed amongst the trustees, we have 4 each. The land use options one is something that we see happening way in the future, in 3 to 5 or longer. But just for me, I look after one of my posts is entitled the environmental revitalisation side of things. And collecting information is really important from our whānau. Also looking like Bob alluded to before, finding a researcher that we can connect with that can start collecting that data is very important. So we'll be looking at that in the new year as well. The other po I have is Manamotahake Kahu establishment. That was a really big focus for us this year, to have all our policies, procedures and the way we operate in place. We spent a lot of time putting that together and confirming it and agreeing it as three, that we were all happy with the content within them. And so that gives us a good foundation to be able to move forward and start our main as well. The other one I look after is future-proofing our success in Manamotahake and tangata people potential. And I was really, truly blessed to have our rangatahi first ever hui yesterday and bring that rangatahi together, a small group, to be able to have a korero about what that means for them, how we can move that forward for them. I think potentially I had about 11 on the list. I'm sure there's more out there. Anyone's welcome to join us. But the korero was driven by them. The input was awesome. True gold potential put in kete for us to be going forward. So that's exciting space to be looking at in the future. Just to slightly on funding research and great asset database, that's asset base, that is Namu, suppose, but I can tell you that we have been putting some thoughts towards having some external speakers coming to us. And they might be potential investors, it could be anything. So we're all, the three of us are collecting ideas, pulling that together to be able to hui with these people. It's been a bit frustrating this year because we haven't been able to kanohi to kanohi, but there's other options for us. We're working in a different space of communication now. And that was evident even when I was learning a lot of things about rangatahi yesterday about how they communicate as well. So at different levels, we're going to help, work together and pull together. So yeah, and that kind of gives you a view of where we're at and how we're tracking. Always open for your feedback and aroha towards it. So send us an email or even pick up the phone.
So one thing we have that was brought in last AGM, can't be considered this year, was there was a TWNART down at last year's AGM around giving a call. So in looking at our work program and looking at that request there, we spent a bit of time discussing it. But we put in a resolution to the table that our trust make a one-off koha of $20,000 each to Whakakī Marae, Iuiti Marae and Parauhi. So I just want to put that on the floor for discussion before I put it to the vote.
Oh, so that's for this coming year, because the last one was
Yes.
50,000 for the last year.
Yeah, there was a figure mentioned for last year. But basically, I think the resolution from last year was amended to say that the trustees will take into consideration this year and put forward a resolution.
Well, so if this resolution goes through, does the marae get to take it? If they don't,
No, it would be up to the marae as to whether they do or not. I don't think we're going to force money onto anybody.
Wasn't it around the tax implications that why you questioned it last year?
Pardon?
Wasn't it around tax implications why you questioned it last year? Okay.
This is
But it's not-
unconditional,
this is-
conditional.
Yes, of course.
They've changed it to call.
Yeah, so it is a koha, but still from your, if as a marae, not set up as a charitable trust, then you'll be paying income tax. So if you set up as a charitable trust, say as like Whakakī Marae, then you don't tax because it is a koha, it's just given for the love of it, not for any goods or services. It will be GST, shouldn't be subject to GST.
Okay.
But for those that aren't right and aren't a registered charity, it will be subject to.
We'll have your.
Thank you.
So if there's no more discussion around that, I will put the resolution to the floor. Is there a seconder for that? Richard? All those in favour of Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua Trust making one of $420,000 to each of Whakakī Marae, Te Marae. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Abstain?
Just before we finish, thank you, Petey, for supplying these. Because I can't attend, and I'll be putting in my apologies, there's a correction on page 4. It's Rangi-a-Hua, not Rangi-a-Hua. My relative pronounced it wrong up there, but my grandfather and his father, who I used to live with, pronounced it Rangi-a-Hua.
Thank you. I shall pass that through to our team.
Thank you. And I've told them before. And the other one is on page 30. And under Te Whakakī Tapukura and my tawhiti, one of their hub got Ngāti Tahu. In their trustees, it says Ngāti Tahu with brackets ki iwitia. If that could be altered, please, because it's quite important with the discussions we're having about Manapuki. According to their trustee, it's got bracket ki iwitia. Kia ora.
Thank you, Nigel. Were there any questions on the floor or from our participants on Zoom? Wrap things up.
Just one, and it's a consequence of this AGM and with reference earlier on in the meeting to the third distribution. And so Tato yesterday indicated that they will pay the third distribution before the 28th of Feb, subject to receipt of evidence from each of the kāhui that they have conducted an AGM and that they have audited accounts.
Sure. Meet both those criteria. Thank you, Cousin. Richard.
Kia ora, Bob. Look, yesterday we had the Marae meeting and I commented on our delight at how prudent our kāhui have been in total. So I'd just like to restate that. Just congratulations on the first period, the second period, and the fact that you haven't run amok with the money. So congratulations and thank you, and carry that on. But we're looking forward to this next year and ensuing years, because the diligence that you fellows have applied to the strategic planning process, you've taken the time for that, and just the explanations that you've given today, and the work that you've been doing on a weekly basis on just cranking it along. Thank you very much for that work, and I know that you've had your challenge that you were talking about yesterday, and you're looking very well. So thanks again for making yourself available. So just an acknowledgement to Namu, to you, and to Joanna for the work that you put in, and we're looking forward to the next year as well. So thank you, congratulations. And just a comment to Kitty. Kitty comes and stays with us out of the school house, and it's such a pleasure to have him come and stay. So we get a bit of an update from time to time. And I'm sure he gets tired of us because we moan like hell, he turns up. So thank you for that, Kitty. But your input to the kāhui and also the input to Tato, unbelievable input. And if you have a look to see what's happened with the Tato report, quite an amazing thing that's going on there. you have a look like I do at their finances. It's quite interesting to show, even though it's a revaluation, it's just that we've been able to improve the performance, the financial performance of the Tato Tato and Kāhui as well, because we benefit from that. So just congratulations to you all. Ngā mihi nui ki a tātou mō koutou mahi tēnā.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
Yeah, sorry, I was just talking with Piripi, and if there was a program to be run for our youth which involves hunting in our forests, given Pākarai's traditional territory of Minitia, 23 Hapus, and it's part of the with Piripi now working in town with people, who would he get permission from to go hunting in forests?
Currently, we've got the Wairoa Hunters Club. So they've been acknowledged by Tato Tato as being the go-to group. So nobody can get in there unless they're registered member of Tato Tato. But apart from that, start contact to Brian Wilcox and that group for a start.
Thank you.
So, and I think our greatest desire, I suppose, in that is around the safety of not only our youth, but also all of our hunters who are in any of those forest areas. And through the hunting club, they work closely with Jukin as well, JNL, who have the operations there. So safety across all of those elements.
Awesome. Thank you.
So we don't have any questions from our folks on Zoom there. Is there anything else? If not, I'd like to.
So I just wanted to touch base on that first point you spoke about in regards to implementing place-based learning in schools. And there was an annual in there of a group that is currently looking at facilitating that. I just want to know more about that group.
So it's in progress at the moment. It's come through as part of Kāhui-Ako, which is part of the ministry. And so what we've done is we've secured, I'm not sure, there's 20, must be 20 hours a month. It's a certain portion of Tāwehi Munro's time, who works for the Ministry of Education. He's now doing some work directly under Lewis as a contribution to Tato Tato, which is about moving that Kāhui-Ako and its focus forward. We've got, it was 40,000 in each of 2 years, so 80,000 all up to actually advance that. Part of that is to pay for that resource. He happens to be my younger brother, but he works for the ministry as a strategic Māori advisor. So because he knows all about that and he also knows how the ministry works, we've just grabbed some of his time and said he could come and work for the iwi. But if you want, I can get your contact details and I'll connect you in with my brother and he'll tell you what it's all about.
And also that Hauora initiative you're talking about in regards to looking at the peer epidemic and what that's looking like. So, because I work around that space too, so in terms of coming up with initiatives to help solve that, you know, whakatakahia I te rau ngā ngangara hei Wainganui te hāpuri. What is it? Who would be the good contact person to have a around that space?
It got raised in the Kāhui chair by one of the Kāhui chairs in yesterday's meeting. And it was raised purely because they see it as an issue. In this case, it was down in Nuhaka Way. And they says they know it's an issue out of Mahi and they know it's an issue, well, it's an issue across all of Te Roki. And so they wanted to know what can we do about that and how can we coordinate our efforts and our resources to work alongside others for that. It was raised in that context. So I think the best way forward might be, if you give me your contacts, what I'll do is I'll work through Lewis, our general manager, because he'll have something to do with it, because we're part of that partnerships group, the CPG I was talking about. We're trying to sort of point that money and resource that we're getting back towards our issues. And this is one of them, amongst quite a few others.
So I'm hoping that it's appropriate while the trust is here, and we're here on behalf of Whakakī Nui-A-Rua is as a suggestion that for the kahui, for all kahui to look at considering combining resources to be able to look at implementing something to remedy epidemic that's happening. One thing in particular is through the conversations I've had with those in the health, mental health, and those that are working in with those particular clients is residency and respite. So perhaps kahui and tātou can look at investing, because that's, I mean, at the end of the day, that's where it's coming down to. Looking at investors to invest in a respite for those that are recovering from methamphetamine use, or a residential area, so they don't have to go outside of Wairua and away from their family. I think that's also the concern there, is to ensure that they're still connected to their whānau and to their whakakainga, their tūranga whānau. So yeah, I thought I'd just lay it out there, that koha out there, and see how it's received by the rest of the whānau. Kia ora.
Can we touch base after?
Yeah.
Kia tūpato, he's going to drag you into some money here. Kia ora. There's nothing else. We'll wrap things up. Cousin, can I pass it over to you to close us out? But once again, thank you all for coming along to today's AGM. We've just checked over in the kitchen and everything's right for us to go. So after Cousin closes up here, we'll make our way over to the dining room where we can enjoy some coffee. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
I think as we give thanks for the year that has passed and for the year moving forward, we take this small moment of time just to think about others who are in place of need or in time of need, and certainly a time to think about Namu. Namu's stricken with the flu, and in being so, she was running around yesterday with one of those masks on to make sure things were sort of being done and getting in place. And she shouldn't have been doing that. So it's a time for us just to reflect, not only on ourselves, but on others who may be in a time of need. Anei rā tātou e te atu. Timatahia tēnei hui o tātou kei runga I te rangi Mārie me ki te tuku whakamoe me tiki a koe. Kia uhia nei kei runga I ngā kōrero o tēnei mai te taruti. E whiu nei mai ki te whānuitanga o te Whakakī-Nui-A-Rua, tai nei ki te mūtunga o tēnei hui ka hoki mai anō ki a koe. Ki mai ki ngā kāinga, ki ngā marae, puta no kai roto I te rohe o te wai. Ara hina mai rā I a tātou, I te tāu e tūnei kei mua rā I a tātou. Tuku mai rā I a manaakitanga kei runga I ngā ringa o mātāu, o tātou o tēnei rohe. Kia tū mai, ke manaki mai, kia tuku ngā aroha, ki tēnā o tātou. Anei rā mātou e tuku tēnei whakamoe me tiki a koe. Iau manakitanga, iau aroha, iau ārahi. Kei runga I ngā āhuato nā unei I hanga. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, Te ata whai i o tātou ariki o Iwhakaraiti. Me te aroha atu, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu. Ake. Āmine, kia ora tātou.
Kia ora tātou, kia ora. I think you're the guy.